Our investigation also takes us to Grenada. Prime Minister Keith Mitchell has been in power for most of the last 25 years. His diplomatic choices don't seem to conform to the spirit of the Vienna Convention, that ambassadors should be nationals of the country and full-time diplomats. Many of Grenada's ambassadors are foreigners with business links to the island, although there's no suggestion these diplomats paid for their appointments. Oleg Feira runs an internet firm in Miami, while Grenada's ambassador to Moscow. Hamza Al-Kholi heads a global company, while a UNESCO ambassador in Paris. Naguib Sawiris designated Grenada's ambassador to France, but never accepted by the French. Sawiris is one of Egypt's richest men. He owns the luxury Silver Sands on Grenada's premier beach. He's now building phase 2 further along the bay. Locals fear expansion into the adjoining Camahone Park, the last strip of public land leading to the sea.
The young trend loves to come playing the sand. The park is our access way to the beach. Camahone Park is a part of me. It's a part of my life, my childhood life. And really, it's one of our national assets, and we deserve to have this park.
We can have a situation that's happened in many countries where all the lovely sites were taken up with commercial development. The residents have become second-class citizens, and there is nowhere for them to really enjoy anymore.
Their fears were reinforced in 2017 when a draft resolution to protect Camahone Park from redevelopment was rewritten by the government.
Instead of having the park as a place for us to enjoy in perpetuity, they rewarded it to say that all attempts should be made to facilitate the investor's expansion of his project. So this is worrying when the government would go to that end.
There's no evidence Naguib Sawiris paid Prime Minister Mitchell for his title. By contrast, an American conman says he did pay for his ambassadorship.
Eric Restiner is a serial fraudster who for a spell operated in the Caribbean.
David Marchant runs the financial crime database Offshore Alert, which investigated Eric Restiner.
Why would he want a diplomatic passport?
When you operate like Restiner does, you either know you're under investigation or you know that you will be under investigation at any given time. So it provides a level of security.
Offshore Alert claimed Restiner promised Prime Minister Mitchell $1 million, handing over half at a Swiss villa, with a plan to ensure he wasn't double-crossed.
His former head of security told me that he secretly recorded video and audio Restiner giving a briefcase with $500,000 of cash in $100 bills to Keith Mitchell. After it was secretly recorded, Restiner told the head of security that if he tries to with me, I've got him by the balls.
And the head of security then put all of this down into some form of legal document, is that right?
He swore an affidavit, and I was given a copy of that.
The Americans jailed Restiner for fraud in 2006 and confiscated the tape without making it public. A judicial inquiry accepted Prime Minister Mitchell's explanation. He did receive cash, but only $15,000 for travel expenses.
Keith Mitchell just wants to enrich himself at the expense of the people who voted him into power, and it's disgusting. It's disgraceful.
You know what $1 million US can do in an election? That alone could finance a whole election.
George Warm publishes the New Today paper in Grenada. He says his sources confirm the sale of diplomatic passports has helped Keith Mitchell stay in power.
There is a gentleman, he was a government agent. He was like the middleman in establishing the communication between these individuals and the government. And he was telling me the kind of prices that these diplomatic passports and other official positions, but when you're talking about the diplomatic passports, it was going for 1 million EC.
And if $1 million was paid, where did that money go?
Into personal pocket. These are the monies that the politicians would then use to service their constituency. So when the people say we want a fridge, we want a stove, that's where the money is coming from.
A number of times I've had people approach me asking whether I could get a diplomatic passport because they know I hang around with all the prime ministers.
Leo Ford has spent years doing business in both Grenada and Dominica.
For the prime ministers, I would suggest that the trade of diplomatic passports is the most lucrative endeavor. First time I had heard about this was about 15 years or so ago. Then the price was $25,000. Then it went to $50,000. Today, as I understand it, it's $250,000. Unless you're hot, really hot, then the price will go to over $1 million.
Hot as in what?
Criminal activities, indictments, it happens.
So the more desperate you are for the immunity, the more the price goes up.
Exactly.
All right, you see the sign?
Yeah. The sign was for a project in Grenada also linked to an ambassador role.
Yep.
See it there?
So GSA was the project, and then Acros, they were the people who were bringing the money in.
Yeah. What would have been here and what is here now is totally different.
The site was meant to be an organic shrimp farm, a government-approved project for foreigners to invest in and gain citizenship.
They spoke about a lot of jobs, you know, for this area. All in all, I feel like a real disaster for the country. You know, that didn't go on.
Carl David was working for the man who initiated the project, Leo Ford.
So we would have employed 100 folks in the area that had the highest unemployment rate on the island. So there had to be something going on the island where they needed a big rah-rah for the election, because the election was coming up.
Plans for the shrimp farm were announced by Grenada's Prime Minister.
I'd like to invite to the podium the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
I'm so proud of what we've seen here this afternoon, and look forward to it, to see this project take off in every sense.
The PM, as we were walking out of that, I said, I'll build it, but I'm going to need your help for the approval process. And that's when the Prime Minister said, well, the election's coming up. We take campaign contributions, talk to my ministers.
How did you interpret that comment?
That means they wanted a lot of money to make everything go ahead quickly.
Soren Daoudi, a Swedish national, was the partner who raised the project funding. Both Leo Ford and a colleague say Daoudi told them he was offered an ambassador role.
Soren was talking with his attorney, and his attorney, who's very well connected with one of the ministers, convinced him that he could become an ambassador for the UAE from Grenada.
How did he seem to feel about this?
He was like a little kid in a candy store. He went out and bought himself a pair of $800 or $900 shoes. In the ground opening, it had rained and it was muddy, and he's traipsing through in these beautiful, fancy shoes.
A year later, Keith Mitchell won his 5th term in power, but neither the ambassadorship or the shrimp farm ever materialized. Soren Daoudi denied he'd been offered an ambassadorship and called it a vendetta by Leo Ford. He also denied the money raised was missing. That's now the subject of an investigation by the Grenada government. Keith Mitchell said all the allegations about him were false and came from political activists wanting to tarnish his name and hurt Grenada.